Unfortunately, one teen is dead and 4 others are hurt following a shooting overnight in Milwaukee. We got squad cars responding to the scene of a shooting near 83rd and Brown Deer. This is around 11 o'clock last night. Now, this is video from when our 12 news crews arrived to that scene around 1 o'clock this morning. As you can see, it was heavy police presence there. Milwaukee police say one 19-year-old was dead at the scene, 2 16-year-olds, as well as a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old. They were all taken to the hospital with non-fatal injuries.
New at 10, a hit and run on Milwaukee's north side. This happened at 67th and Medford in the Capitol Heights neighborhood. Our crew saw a bicycle, a shoe on the ground as well, right in the middle of the road. We've reached out to police about any injuries here and what led to the hit and run.
Well, breaking news we're following this morning. Police responding to a violent car crash into a home in Milwaukee's northwest side. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look at this incredible video here. This is from Sherman and North from around 2 o'clock this morning. The car literally vertically into the side of that home, damaging the exteriors. The resident of that home, which is the pastor at a church across the street, telling 12 News exclusively, thankfully, nobody inside the home was hurt, but the crash did wake up his family in shock.
Milwaukee is seeing more and more so-called street takeovers, with at least 59 reported so far this year. The events pose a real threat to public safety as traffic is stopped in major intersections with large crowds and spectators watching cars racing or spinning out. That's not to mention the added danger of fireworks being thrown and, in some cases, even gunfire.
The level of violence that we are now tolerating is really sad.
Milwaukee Public Schools Superintendent Dr. Brenda C.O.W.S. sounding an alarm.
Losing children to gun violence is not normal.
C.O.W.S., just a few months on the job, says she's lost 24 of her students over the last year to homicides.
What has caught me off guard is the frequency that it's happening and the sense that there's not a coordinated effort to stop it.
A 15-year-old boy is charged with shooting and killing his sister earlier this week. Prosecutors are charging that teen as an adult. AJ Bayatpour has been going through those documents and joins us now with what we've learned today. AJ?
Natalie, the Milwaukee County DA's office filed charges today against the teen accused of killing his sister, 30-year-old Ashley Hudson. They also charged one of Hudson's sisters and Hudson's mother, who just last night told us things that at least one witness disputes based on these new court records. On Friday, only candle wax and messages and sidewalk chalk are what remain at the corner of MLK Drive and Valete Street. 3 days earlier, family and friends remembered Ashley Hudson at the spot where her life ended.
I'm shocked, but not too shocked because, like I said, I kind of figured they always, the family always had long history of fighting and feuding among siblings.
Relatives describe a fractured family.
The stuff that we said to each other, it wasn't right, it wasn't fair. I didn't never think it can get to this point, but it always been like this. Like, they always bumped heads, they always fought, it always been like this.
Prosecutors also charged this man in a crash that killed a grandmother in Milwaukee. Prosecutors say it started when Dante Miller took off from a traffic stop back in January. During the chase, they say he slammed into an SUV at 34th and Lloyd. 70-year-old Beverly Fair died at the scene. Miller was not at the scene of the crash, but left his cell phone in his car. Police later arrested him. He's charged with reckless homicide, hit-and-run driving without a license. New here on 12 News at 5, someone opened fire into a Milwaukee home, killing a 12-year-old girl. This happened in the middle of the night at a home near 73rd and Fairmount, just north of Hampton and east of Timmerman Airport. 12 News' Hannah Hillier joins us live from Milwaukee Police District 7 tonight. Hannah, these officers are the ones who responded overnight.
Right, Deanna, and these investigators here at District 7, they are right now trying to find the person or people responsible for shooting this 12-year-old girl, marking the 10th shooting death of a child here in Milwaukee so far this year.
Emergency lights filled the pitch-dark sky in this quiet Milwaukee neighborhood Friday morning. Police responding to a deadly shooting near 73rd and Fairmount just after 1:15 a.m. Our cameras spotted upwards of 12 evidence markers in the middle of the street, a lone bullet casing among them. This scene leaving a 12-year-old girl dead.
We're following breaking news from overnight, a quadruple shooting on Milwaukee's south side. It happened just before 9 o'clock last night near 10th and Mineral. That's in the city's Walker's Point neighborhood. This morning, all 4 victims are expected to survive. 12 News' Duke Carter, as you see here, joins us live from 10th and Mineral. Duke, this quadruple shooting continues a surge of violence as we head into the summer months.
Yeah, according to Milwaukee police, non-fatal shootings, unfortunately, 250 this year, 70 just within the last 4 weeks. The latest happening here at this intersection at 10th and Middle here in Walker's Point. Now, completely different scene. Quiet, cool, calm, and tranquil. But overnight, that was a completely different tale. So at 10th and Mineral, police say 2 26-year-olds and a 27-year-old and a 34-year-old were shot. Medics rushed them all to the hospital, and they are expected to survive. So that is the good news in this case. However, right now, police do not have anyone in custody.
I first met Lamaya Kamen in 2009 when her mom called us outraged that Lamaya's first-grade teacher yelled at her for playing with her braids and then cut one off with a scissors in front of the class.
What did you do?
I went to my desk and cried, and they was laughing. She threw it away.
The story went national. The teacher ticketed for disorderly conduct, and Lamaya moved on.
The last time I saw you, you were 7.
15 years later, here we are.
Lamaya reached out to me to share good news. The now 22-year-old is exploding as a hip-hop artist, known as 414 Jungle Baby, just signing a multi-record deal with a division of Warner Music.
People say, why did I call myself Jungle Baby? I consider Milwaukee as the jungle, and I was just a baby in here.
Did that incident follow you?
Yeah. I got plenty of people that hit me up like, oh, I want to interview you. You're the girl that got your hair cut off. And I was just like, I'm trying to leave it where it was at, but it's going to always be there. So I just became to accept it.
New tonight, the fight over facial recognition software. Milwaukee police want to use this new technology to search for suspects, but they're also facing some strong opposition.
Medical apartheid, the dark history of medical experimentation on Black Americans from colonial times to the present.
Today we continue our Black History Month coverage. Less than 6% of doctors in the U.S. are black. Our Jessica Maduker sits down with a doctor at Frederick Hospital who is working to fight that racial disparity.
I was like, I have a calling to help people.
At first, that calling for Dr. Latasha Harper was a physical therapist, but that changed when she lost her father and grandfather.
Eventually, I was like, I need to be a doctor. I can make a difference because I seen it. My father was getting sicker by the minute. My grandfather wasn't doing well. And I'm just like, it's not making sense.
She says she recognized a lack of black doctors, which impacted her family's experience in healthcare.
They go to the doctor, they're taking the medicine as they're prescribed, but why are they not getting better? I started to realize is that they didn't trust a lot of the doctors. Oh, that doctor told me to do this. I don't believe that.
According to the Association of American Medical Colleges, more than half of all doctors in the country are white and just 5% are black.
Seeing someone from the same socioeconomic background, they have just an understanding about the culture. And a lot of my patients feel comfortable, being able to share information that they felt like they couldn't with someone else of a different ethnic background.
And that can make all the difference when it comes to a patient's care. Dr. Harper practices family medicine, becoming that change here in Milwaukee because she's seen it firsthand.
I grew up on First and Center, 26th and Keep, so I know disparities that they may deal with.
And moving forward, she hopes to inspire more to step into the field.
Being a physician and going back to the communities where I was born and raised and showing them that, yes, you can do it. I came from Milwaukee public school system, and yes, even with that education, I can make it, and they can too.
In Milwaukee, Jessica Maduker, TMJ4 News.
Medical apartheid.
Welcome back. Hospitals and healthcare systems are used to treating symptoms that cause people pain. In response to the pain of racial inequity, Frederick and the Medical College of Wisconsin, they've developed and released an Eradicating Racism and Enhancing Health Equity strategic plan, addressing disparities in the workplace and disparities that impact the lives of their staff and patients. Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer Andres Gonzalez joins me to tell us more. Frederick and the Medical College of Wisconsin has a mission to advance the health of the people of the diverse communities they serve through exceptional care enhanced by innovation and discovery. Joining us is Andres Gonzalez, Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer at Frederick. How are you, Andres?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here today.
I'm happy to have you join us today. Yeah. Now, you provide direction to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, where you lead strategic initiatives that work to eradicate racism. So if you would talk about your top priorities in doing that.
Sure. So I will start by saying and acknowledging that at Frederick and the Medical College of Wisconsin, we understand that many of the communities that we serve have been touched and impacted by racism, number one. And by doing so, we have been very thoughtful and strategic on creating a strategic plan now that we have titled Eradicating Racism and Enhancing Health Equity. Under that particular plan, there's a set of strategies that we've created, but I think I would like to highlight one particular thing that I think stands out to me, and that is we decided and deliberated long and hard and came up with a anti-racism pledge that we stand for. And it was not only about flowery words and calling racism a health crisis in America, and certainly right here in the greater Milwaukee area or in our state, but as importantly, having some key actions that we're willing to undertake. Number one, it's about treating people with dignity and respect. Number two, it's about examining our own biases. Number three, it's about reviewing, tracking, and measuring all of our policies and our practices to ensure that everyone will have a fair and just process and practice moving forward.
That word fair? Fair. Woo, man. Gusty, worthless Negro from Virginia, in for another broadcast, context of white supremacy. Hopefully to share constructive information with non-white people. Information on the global system of white supremacy racism, what racism, white supremacy is, how it works, what it means to be classified as white. I do want to say briefly, we heard a slightly longer intro for the folks tuning in live. I'll have to think for the archive, will that be in the archive? I would probably say no, because my intention was not to play that snippet of audio, the little bit of Nirvana, Smell Like Teen Spirit, got a rep for 206, but all of that about what's going on in Milwaukee, Cream City, what's going on in Milwaukee? Woo! 414 Jungle Baby. Why you call yourself 414 Jungle Baby? She said, Milwaukee is the jungle. That audio say, you didn't even hear all of it, but just that little snippet, all of those news reports, the car being upside down that ran through the house and quadruple shooting, 12-year-old shot, all of that happened while I was in Milwaukee. And I mean all of it. The jungle, indeed, it just, woo, Cream City. Anyway, the for real audio intro for today's broadcast began with medical apartheid. I can only say reading is more important than watching television. One of the most important books I have ever read. I am so proud, thankful. The Catherine Massey Book Club. We've had a book club for over 12 years here at the C.O.W.S. Long time running. 2016, we read Harriet A. Washington, Medical Apartheid, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on African Americans from Colonial Times to the Present. spectacular. It's been a decade since we read it. I cite this book all the time for a myriad of different reasons. And in fact, even when we're discussing white supremacy, racism in South Africa, I generally bring up this book with authority. If you are a black person really anywhere in the known universe, certainly in the U.S., and you are classified as black, you should have a hardback copy of Medical Apartheid, Harriet A. Washington. It can be no lower than third on Gus T's top 10 book list. It can be no lower than 3. It might even have to tie Sundown Towns at 2. I would be fine with that, but I have to think about it. But it can be no lower than 3. Must read, particularly for today's broadcast. So the first segment that we heard that counted official, Dr. Harper said she became a doctor after observing all of that black male privilege in her family. He said, man, my dad went to the hospital and he's struggling and about to die. Oh my God. Grandpa went to the hospital and he's struggling, about to die. Black dude privilege. Ain't it something? Anyway, she said she thought it would be important. What motivated, inspired her to be a doctor. She said, hey, we don't have a whole lot of black doctors. And I mean, hey, Dr. Emmy told us, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing told us, and many of our guests, the reason that there's only 5% black doctors is because of people classified as white said, we don't want no more Negro doctors, and they deliberately went about shutting down black medical colleges. This is black ink fact. Some of this in Medical Apartheid, because she talks about how they got rid of midwives too. And in particular, they got rid of black male doctors. Number of black female doctors has been slowly going up over the last 30 years or so. Not black male doctor. You might see an albino chipmunk before you see Heathcliff Huxtable. Yuck, 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 yuck. That's my Cosby joke for the day. Anyway, so Dr. Harper said, hey, you want to see someone who is from your socioeconomic background, whatever that means and all that other, to me sounded like malarkey. Hey, I would like to see someone who does not practice racism, like stop pussyfooting. Stop pussyfooting. It does not make any difference, because every black person doesn't have the same socioeconomic background, right? You know that. Some black people have a quarter. Gus T. Some black people have way more than a quarter, but they still get racism when they go to the hospital. So I'd like to see a physician, Hippocratic Oath, don't practice racism. That's what we want, Dr. Harper. But Victims Guaranteed Qualified, VGQ. She said, hey, I graduated from MPS Milwaukee Public School. Woo! This report is a little bit older. When I heard that, the first thing that I heard that came to my mind was, don't drink the water. If we had let that audio that I was playing at the beginning, if we had let that full clip play, MPS and the lead water would have popped up big time. And that's racism, white supremacy too, because they said, man, the schools that got closed down, like where Mrs. Scarborough's other daughter went to school, as she said, that's one of the first schools they closed down because of the poisoned water. And MPS, sometimes you have to bring your own soap. That doesn't sound like a breeding ground for the next generation of doctors, lead and no soap, but that's MPS 2025. And they had 24 MPS students shot and killed. Breeding ground for neuroscientists, physicians, dentists, nurses. Don't get me started on Rufus King, man. Don't you get me started on it. Continuing, so the next clip, they talked about Froedtert Hospital in Milwaukee. I didn't get to Froedtert, and I just want to flex since I was there and I got all them maps. I did look at the map for Frederick. We're going to ask our guest to make sure Gus isn't on here talking foolish. Frederick is kind of in the western part of Milwaukee County, western part of Milwaukee proper. It is in Milwaukee, Frederick Hospital, Trauma Center. It's very close to West Allis. Can I get my Dahmer in? You know where Jeff Dahmer's grandmother's house is? Anyway, Frederick Hospital is closer to West Allis than it is to downtown Milwaukee, unless I'm geographically ignorant, which could be because I didn't spend that much time in Milwaukee. Frederick Hospital is also closer to how do you make sure I get it correct pronunciation? Is it Waukesha? They got all these, bizarre names and such, but it's Wauwatosa. That's it. They got two of them. So they got Waukesha and then they got Wauwatosa. It's West Allis. It's right in between like West Allis and Wauwatosa. These are two areas where they don't even let black people in. Frederick Hospital serves predominantly black people. Milwaukee is a predominantly black town, but again, you can get to West Allis way faster than you could get to downtown Milwaukee from Frederick Hospital. That kind of stood out to me as, I don't know. We'll see if that matters, the geography of where Frederick is. Either way, we heard Andres Gonzalez. He's working on Frederick's plan. Hey, we acknowledge racism is a problem, and we have a whole outline and program. We're going to eradicate racism. We're doing our part right here at Frederick Hospital. And he even said, hey, we didn't just put flowery words. We got an action plan behind this. We're going to talk to one of their black clients and see, did it seem like, hey, Frederick is progressive? They really look out for their black patients. I mean, you want to talk about racism? Like, no way. Frederick makes it plain. Ain't no racism at Frederick Hospital in Milwaukee, west part of Milwaukee, unless I'm misinformed. Our guest for today, in fact, I took pictures. She was out there. We'll hear about everything that she's went through, but I met her. She wasn't even out there talking about this incident, what we're talking about today. She was outside of Milwaukee County Courthouse in pink. Paraphernalia, signs for Sade C. Robinson. Justice for Sade. Black self-respect. Wow. Even I'll bring this back up later so you can reconsider. Like, wow, who are we talking to? Like, I cannot believe that. Me either. Joining us live from Milwaukee. We'll get all the details. What is it like to be a black parent in Milwaukee? Joining us live, she's listed on social media. So if you want to get more information, the way that she is listed, it is Dannia Roxanne. However, we heard a snippet from her. I said right outside the courthouse. Taquanda, some folks, Gusty included, might have a number of different handles, but if you want to find her on social media to get more, because she's posted about the incident with her son and Frederick Hospital, it is Dannia Roxanne, joining us live from Milwaukee. Miss Roxanne, are you with us, ma'am?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Gus, for having me.
Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your Sunday evening, I guess, for you all to talk about this really important, really personal subject matter, and even joining us, National Malpractice Awareness Month. We'll get into that as well. Just for our listeners, this might be their first time hearing about you. Anything that you would like to share briefly about who you are and the work that you do out in Milwaukee, Wisconsin?
Well, my name is Taquanda, and can you hear me very well?
Oh, I can hear you great. I'll check in with listeners as well, but if there are problems, we'll let you know.
Okay. So my name is Taquanda. My Facebook page is Dannia Roxanne. I am the mother of Thomas Free. I was in the medical as well for over 17 years. I started as a medical assistant, and I advanced to a clinical supervisor. I am the owner of Patient Lives Matter, and I am also an event coordinator. So that's pretty much what I do here in Milwaukee. I have now reached out to help other people advocate for their loved ones. My focus is mainly on medical justice, but I am not limited to any justice that, if someone reaches out and need my help, I'm willing to help in any area.
Lots of evidence of that, for sure. Were you born, are you a native of Milwaukee, or you moved there at some point?
Oh, yes. I am born and raised here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay. And I just making sure, since some folks, they can't see you and such, maybe they haven't seen your Facebook page, you are classified as a black female, is that correct?
Yes, I am a black female.
Okay. I guess, I don't know if you were paying attention to some of the audio segments that I was playing. Like I said, they were not a part of our official subject matter for today. I'll retract that. They're not. Go ahead. I'm sorry, you said it was?
I said they kind of was. It kind of went into, and I don't know what all you're going to cover, but I enjoyed listening to everything, even the jungle baby, because it is a jungle here. It is. Even listening to Dr. Latasha Harper speak, and then all about the wonderful plans for the racism. I think, what is their slogan? Dignity and respect. I laugh because I did not get any of that. And I do understand that this plan has been, because I was an employee for Freighter Hospital, so I do know that that slogan been around for a while. And so if they're not abiding by it still, then they need to replan.
Dignity. We'll see how much dignity Miss Roxanne experienced at Freighter, but just, I guess, it really is all related. I was going to ask it specifically because you have it on your social media page, and talking about some of, the jungle that is Milwaukee. You wrote, as a mother, black mother, who is still grieving, when I see all this crime and violence, it gives me bad anxiety. I cannot heal in this environment. What did you mean in that posting, which was pretty recent?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, I think I made that yesterday. And I don't know if your listeners keep up with our news here. We have had a long summer, and it's just begun. We have violence that are ringing out every day, all day long. Just the other day, it kind of just really hit me when a 7-year-old boy was snatched while riding his bike. And then later that evening, gunfire rang out, and it killed 2 people and injured, I think, 3 or 4 more. It's so hard to heal in a place where you still see people dying at a larger number than you should. And a lot of people here in our city, when everybody say they want to relocate, they always say, well, there's crime everywhere. But I don't think crime is as bad as it is here. And it's very hard to heal, especially when you're sitting in your home and all you hear is silence, silence, silence. And as a mother that already went through watching her son die, hearing another mother cry is terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible.
We just yesterday on the compensatory call-in discussed the most difficult job in the known universe, being a black parent in the system of white supremacy. And we just talked about this yesterday. I can, as someone who, I was barely there, not even there a month, I can attest to what she said. It is so dangerous, and it is omnipresent. The sirens through lots of ways. The danger is constantly signaled. Yes, there's danger everywhere. But in fact, while I was there researching, mentioned Dahmer, Jeffrey Dahmer. Before Dahmer, I think about 2-3 months before Dahmer, Newsweek had an article, so this is 1991, before he was arrested, I mean, a couple months before, Newsweek had an article, and they said, Milwaukee, the most dangerous city, or it was murder capital of the U.S. The mayor at the time went berserk. What? You don't talk about Cream City like that. And he went through all the, good stuff they got in Milwaukee, and, Lou Alcindor statues and the bronze fonts and blah, 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 all this stuff. Then, as I said, so then a couple days later, the cannibal at 25th Street, and he got the heads, and the mayor didn't have no comment then. They go, what you, no, we're going to leave this to the police. I say all that to Milwaukee has been very dangerous for black people for a long time. Like, whew, man, I said when I was there, like, man, praying, can I get out of Milwaukee? Can I get out of Milwaukee? I could not imagine being a parent raising children in Milwaukee. MPS, man. Like, woo. Anyway, I'm sorry.
I'm a parent.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I'm a parent of 6 where, one of my sons passed, but raising 4 boys here was always in my mind, like, oh, I got to get out of here. Like, I got to make it out of here, because I never wanted to lose a son to violence. Never did I ever imagine that I would lose a son to medical neglect. And I'm just like still trying to figure out, like, how do I get my boys out of here, because my youngest is 16, and thank God that my kids are they're like me. We're homebodies, and they listen and they are respectful. He's into sports, so that's like keeping him busy. But it's so easy for kids to get mixed up in the wrong, doing and things out here because they, follow the wrong crowd and everything. So I'm just glad that my sons are, they're very respectful boys, and I'm working on getting us up out of here.
Hey, they say the fruit don't fall far from the tree. And now, this was not my reason for coming to Milwaukee. I've been very transparent for months. The reason I went to Milwaukee was to cover the Sade C. Robinson murder trial, and that is what I did. That's where I met our guest at the courthouse. Literally, she was out front protesting in pink during our lunch recess. But there was so much glaring data, and I mean granular, detailed data. Milwaukee is very dangerous for black people, period. No question. Milwaukee is extremely dangerous for black males. That was emphasized over and over and over and over while I was there. Even University of Wisconsin, really specific details. It's massively dangerous to be a black dude in Milwaukee, really in Wisconsin, period, but especially in Milwaukee. With the facial, everywhere I went, that was made extremely and explicitly apparent. Man, and just one deal, there's bunches I could give, but it just one that was kind of a random throwaway. They spoke with a black professor, University of Wisconsin-Madison, and this was 20 years ago. And he did an interview, Wisconsin Public Radio, and he said, talking about MPS again, Milwaukee Public Schools, he said, Milwaukee Public Schools, they graduate about 35% of black males. I was stunned. Like, what? Is that like a crisis? Like, dude, what? Now, this is 20 years ago. I mentioned this statistic to people right now. Like, maybe it's improved or that. Like, everyone that I've mentioned. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I don't know the statistics for MPS because my children, they go to an independent charter school. So I don't speak on MPS because I don't actually know what they have going on. I do know my kids go to Milwaukee Academy of Science, and they always have a graduation rate of 100% with college acceptance. So I really don't know about MPS. I really don't.
Intelligent decision. What was your thought process in not going in public schools? Did you graduate from Milwaukee Public Schools? Let me ask that first.
I did graduate from Milwaukee Public School, but I also had a mother that made sure that we read daily. We did extracurricular activities in summer school and stuff like that. So I didn't have a bad experience, and I didn't send my older children. They did start off in MPS, and I think I just chose to, give them a different educational background because it seemed to be a different approach with the learning experience. So, and they do pretty good in the school that they're in. It's a really good school.
See, like, I don't hear her talking about they don't have soap at that school. So, hey, job well done picking the education for your children. I guess getting to the medical component, talking about the danger, because she said, hey, having 4 black boys, we got to get out of here. Violence, terrible, got to get out of here. She was not thinking medical malpractice or medical racism being a culprit for her son her son's health and demise. There is a report, they were talking about COVID-19 in Milwaukee. So this is from a few years ago, but wow, it pivots right to main points of our discussion for today and Froedtert hospitals specifically. So this is from ProPublica. The title of the report, early data shows African Americans have contracted and died of coronavirus at an alarming rate. And this was the case for many regions like Chicago with high populations of black people at that time. The coronavirus entered Milwaukee from a white, affluent suburb, likely Whitefish Bay, Thiensville, Cedarburg, who knows. Then it took root in the city's black community and erupted. As public health officials watched cases rise in March, too many in the community shrugged off warnings. Rumors and conspiracy theories proliferated on social media, pushing the bogus ideas that black people are somehow immune to the disease. I remember that. Do you remember hearing that black people are immune to COVID-19, Miss Roxanne?
I did kind of hear a little bit about that. I actually was the COVID liaison in Menominee Falls when COVID took place. So I did all of the testing and ran all of the schedule there. Actually, I was stationed at Freighter Hospital.
Wow, that's wow. That is. Well, let me keep reading then. Okay, that'll be even more interesting. Let's see, the bogus idea. Okay, and much of the initial focus was on international travel, so those who knew no one returning from Asia or Europe were quick to dismiss the risk. Then, when the shelter-in-place order came, there was a natural pushback among those who recalled other painful government restrictions, including segregation and mass incarceration on where black people could walk and gather. We're like, we have to wake people up, said Milwaukee Health Commissioner Jeanette Kowalik. As the disease spread at a higher rate in the black community, it made an even deeper cut. Environmental, economic, and political factors have compounded for generations, putting black people at higher risk of chronic conditions that leave lungs weak and immune systems vulnerable: asthma, heart disease, hypertension, and diabetes. In Milwaukee, simply being black means your life expectancy is 14 years shorter, Jesus Christ, on average than someone white. Woo! As of Friday morning, I would expect it to be bad everywhere, but that seems even... Anyway, as for Friday morning, African Americans made up almost half of Milwaukee County's 945 cases and 81% of its 27 deaths in a county whose population is 26% black. Milwaukee is one of the few places in the United States that is tracking the racial breakdown of people who have been infected by the novel coronavirus, offering a glimpse at the disproportionate destruction it is inflicting on black communities nationwide. Health Commissioner Kowalik said that there have been delays of up to 2 weeks in getting results back from some private labs, but nearly all of those who died have done so at hospitals or while in hospice. Still, Kowalik said she understood why some members in the black community distrusted the care they might receive in a hospital. I'll stop there, although there's a tad bit more that's important. Does this match up with what you saw? Do you remember black people in Milwaukee being particularly hard hit by COVID-19?
I actually service a lot of Caucasian and Asian. I didn't see a lot of African Americans getting COVID-19.
Fascinating. You said you worked with a lot of white people, Asian people, so-called, and you said you were at Freighter at this time. Is that true?
Yes.
Wow. And Freighter, generally speaking, they serve a lot of black people at Freighter, generally speaking. Is that true?
Yes. I mean, it's you know, a mixture depending on what department you're going into. Definitely in the main hospital, a lot of black people. What I can say is, from research, our blood type played a big factor in receiving, you know, the COVID-19. And sometimes if we had it, we didn't even know that we had it, because our symptoms may not have been as bad as someone with a different blood type or a different immune system as such. But I will say I did not service a lot of black people.
Fascinating. Okay. Duly noted, but not quite her experience at Freighter at the time. I guess I'll ask here, is that, make sure I'm being correct here, so geographically, Is Froedtert Hospital, the trauma center, is that in the west part of Milwaukee, like really close to West Allis and Wauwatosa?
More so Wauwatosa, and West. Yeah, if you go further, a little south is West Allis, and if you go west is Wauwatosa. So I was in Monotonous Falls, though, but which we only had a few locations. Well, it was certain locations you could go to be tested. So, not to say a lot of them could have went to more of the inner city hospitals, because we had Aurora that was doing testing and things like that. So, and then we also had a community center that did most of the testing too. So.
Okay. Just because, hey, I don't live there. That was my first time ever going to Milwaukee a few weeks back. And like I said, from what I was told, folks said, hey, Wauwatosa, black people do not kick it and own property in Wauwatosa. And ditto for, go ahead.
Well, I think, a lot of people, we are spreading out. So we do have people that are in Wauwatosa, but the likelihood of more poverty, people getting houses in Wauwatosa is not likely, unless you were buying a house, or no one is probably going to go rent a house out there. So it all depends, because I have family that lives in Wauwatosa, I have family that lives in Waukesha, I have family that lives, throughout Wisconsin. But it all depends on the bracket range where you're at.
Important. Much obliged, Miss Roxanne. The 2020 census lists Wauwatosa, Wisconsin as having 6.91% black people. So not a whole lot of...
That's not a lot. It's not a lot.
It's not, no. Not too many out there. I mean...
So
go ahead.
I think a lot of black people, they want to stay in Milwaukee. They don't, that's just like myself. I would love to be in Milwaukee. Hindsight, if the crime wasn't as bad as it is, and I want to say, we do have a lot of good things that on the flip side of Milwaukee. We have, initiative programs that are trying to put things in play to kind of get our city, back on track and to give the kids something to do. We got a lot of leaders that are out here trying to put together things for the youth to do. Also, let me just shout out the church I go to, Evolve. Evolve have a lot of community resources and a lot of just resources for minorities and parents, and even a youth program. So I think what needs to happen is the people that are in the city, they have to reach out. They have to go and find what is in our city to help them, because the city itself isn't what's making our place bad. It's the people that are not choosing to utilize programs, to get themselves in better position, and to get themselves somewhere. So if you're not doing something positive, what are you doing?
Our guest, Miss Roxanne, also one of the leaders in the Milwaukee area, trying to do constructive things and help children with the programs and out protesting for justice for Sade and all the rest of it, and more of what we'll talk about today. All right, so I'm finishing up the last section of that report on ProPublica. So this is where it pivots specifically to Froedtert. and what's happening with black people in Milwaukee. So they write, in January of 2020, a 25-year-old daycare teacher named Tashana Ward died after staff at Frederick Hospital failed to check her vital signs. Federal officials examined 20 patient records and found 7 patients, including Ward, didn't receive proper care. The report didn't reveal the race of those whose records it examined at the hospital, which predominantly serves black patients, even though it's sandwiched between these predominantly white areas. Frederick Hospital declined to speak to issues raised in the report, according to a February 2020 article from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and it had not submitted any corrective actions to federal officials. What black folks are accustomed to in Milwaukee and anywhere in the country really is pain not being acknowledged and constant inequities that happen in healthcare delivery, Cowlick said. The health commissioner herself, a black woman who grew up in Milwaukee, said she's all too familiar with the city's enduring struggles with segregation and racism. Her mother is black and her father Polish, white, and she remembers the stories they shared about trying to buy a house as a young interracial couple in Sherman Park, a neighborhood once off limits to blacks like Wauwatosa or West Dallas. Anyway, I'll stop there, but were you working there? So this, talking about this federal...
What's the date again?
So this is, they're talking Tashana Ward. She died under their care in January of 2020.
No, I wasn't employed through them in 2020, but I do remember that hearing that case. And again, I did hear when you said they something about the pain. They ignore the pain. So what happens is with our black community, and I want to say this, and I'm speaking because I was a clinical supervisor at a pain clinic. They look at a lot of our black clients as drug seekers and wanting the pain meds. So if you're saying that you have a high pain level or whatever, they don't want to give you any pain meds or give you anything to be addictive to, because they either A, think that you're addicted to drugs, or B, that you're going to get the drugs and you're going to sell them. And we know that they are taking, there's two parts to this, they're taking the pain pills and stretching them and making fake pills that are killing people. But you do have people that are in true pain. And if they can't, get that pain addressed, it turns into other health issues. It turns into anger, and they're out here and they're always angry because they are in pain. So that's a real big issue here. Even my son experienced that when he was in hospital. I'm talking about in the amount of pain that he was in, they stopped his pain meds and was worried about him being addicted to pain meds. And I'm like, well, I mean, we have to let's worry about that when he is all better. So, yeah.
Context of white supremacy, medical apartheid. Many of these issues are covered in Medical Apartheid and other books, lots on racism in the healthcare field. But wow, Harriet A. Washington did a great job. Specifically with your son, I guess before we get to the details of what happened with him at Frederick, why did you name your son Free, Miss Roxanne?
So that's his last name. He's named after my daughter's dad's side of the family. So Free is the last name. It's not a made-up name or anything. It's their last name is Free.
Okay. Oh, okay. I like that. What are the, or I guess what was the context that brought your son to Frederick Hospital?
So my son, he first went to a local hospital in the inner city named St. Joseph. It is through Ascension. And when he, showed up there, they had to do an exploratory laparotomy, which they found out that his esophagus was had a tear in it. So right away, I knew exactly like how he could have gotten a tear. He, for the past year since, before he passed, he was getting an operation, or I will say a procedure that takes your esophagus and stretches it, because his esophagus had closed up pretty tight. And so if they would go in and stretch it like they was doing it at first like every 2 weeks, and then they moved it out and was getting it done like every month. And however, it stretched and made a tear in it somehow. And St. Joseph could not do that surgical procedure because they don't have a thoracic doctor there. So that's another thing that is a disadvantage to our community, because now we have to outsource to Frederick, which is probably the only the hospital that could do that that surgery. They only had those surgeons there. And he showed up at Frederick to get that surgery. That next morning, well, like hours later, they did not put the stent in the correct spot, and everything went downhill after that.
Wow. Okay, before we get to, I guess, the errors or negligence, whatever took place to damage your son further, you said, hey, we did not start at Frederick, we started at St. Joseph's, but they didn't have the ability to carry out all the procedures. Only Frederick, that's the big trauma center in the Milwaukee area. Frederick, they have the ability to do these surgeries, so we got to transfer your son over here to Frederick. Which of these facilities is closer to where you resided at that time, St. Joseph's or Frederick?
St. Joseph's is. It's literally like probably not even 5 minutes away from my house.
Oh, dang. Wow. Do they just, by chance, do they have any black doctors, physicians at St. Joseph's?
I'm not for sure. I'm pretty sure they do have, not probably a whole heap of black doctors. But I'm not for sure because I've never worked in their network, and I don't go to any of their doctors in their network, so I wouldn't even know.
I see. Okay. But that's even kind of what I was mentioning before about Frederick. Just looking on the map, like Frederick is not really. It would not surprise me if a lot of black people said, "Man, we were at St. Joseph's, and then man, got to go all the way over there to like." That's kind of what I would expect. Like, it's not really. It doesn't seem like it would be close to where most of the black people stay. Yeah.
So I do know a lot of. Frederick used to have St. Joseph's used to have a bad name, a bad rep, but I do think that they had, once they partnered with Ascension, they kind of, to me, I've seen a difference in their care because I did use their emergency room a few times for a few of my kids. So I noticed that the care was a lot better, but because they're small, their, emergency room is not as big as Frederick or anything. If you show up there and, the community are all utilizing this emergency room, it's going to be a longer wait time. So they have to, either wait it, which a lot of them don't, or they go out to further emergency rooms, which they can be seen at a, faster wait time. Or some of them don't have insurance, so they got to go to freighter, and then they'll be seen regardless.
Wow. Importantly, that's why I said medical apartheid. It gets mentioned in so many different ways. This component is discussed in detail in medical apartheid. And in fact, I can even drill down specifically. This comes up quite a bit in the case with Henrietta Lacks and Johns Hopkins. But what is the importance of Froedtert being a teaching college, Miss Roxanne?
I do understand that, these residents, they have to get their practice in, but I really feel like, by this being a hospital that is a trauma center and very sick people are going there, and they have, people that are coming from car accident and stuff. I don't feel like that's a teaching moment. I feel like they need doctors that are already equipped and have experience and know what they're doing to be able to care for these patients, because what they're doing is they're using our patients as guinea pigs.
Excuse me, you having experience in the medical field and having even worked at Froedtert, is this something that you've seen? Is this something that people have reported? Like, how did you come to conclude that they're same as medical apartheid's title, they are just experimenting on folks here?
I mean, well, just by the number of people that I talked to, I've never really worked with the residency. Well, my daughter actually have worked in a residency program at Froedtert, but at the Menominee Falls, not in like the emergency setting. But through word of mouth, I want to say through the community and people that have had loved ones or had their care being taken care of by the resident and the doctor, this is what we all see. This is what is going on, because I feel like if you are hospitalized and you know your body better than somebody, a doctor that just met you, and of course they know what the books say in this, and you can't even advocate for yourself as far as what your pain feels like or what you experienced before you even got there, they're not listening to you, then we have a problem when it comes to your care, because they're not listening. They're missing out on some important details that you could be telling them about your health care.
When your son, Thomas Free, when he gets transferred from St. Joseph's to Froedtert, did you specifically say, hey, I know this is a teaching college, that's important, but I prefer if the folks who are in residency, if they not be the ones who are working with my son? Did you say anything about that specifically?
Oh, I definitely did, because I know how this program is ran. And once he got the stent put in and he was doing fine the first day, the second day he came off of the ventilator. He was talking, and by that third day, he fell out of the bed, and then I started seeing a shift in his vitals. So I made sure I let them know, like, hey, I need all experienced doctors to be in charge of my son's care. I don't mind if residents tag along or whatever, but when it comes down to making decisions or anything like that, I need only experienced doctors to be a part of that decision team along with myself. Normally, you know, and this is even when my son was in Children's Hospital, I've always been a part of the rounding team. Even if I couldn't be there because I was working, they would always update me and let me be in on his cares because I was his POA since he was, you know, first diagnosed with diabetes. So, well, that's very important that, you know, I advise everybody to do is to assign someone to be able to advocate on their behalf if in any event that they cannot speak for themselves or make sound decisions for themselves.
Excellent recommendation from Miss Roxanne. Just, I guess, for our listeners, because so many of us, myself included, we're accustomed to being called, you know, uppity and sassy, and you know, who are you talking back? How did the doctors, how did they respond when you made that request? Like, hey, you know, the folks who are in residency, they can tag along, that's fine, but I do want experienced doctors handling my child's care. How did they respond to your request?
They looked at me strange, but they know that it is my right. It is your right that you can refuse for the resident to be assigned to your health care. They are not fully a doctor yet, and you can say, hey, I do not want a resident making any healthcare choices on my behalf. You have that right. You have the right to, if a doctor is on your care and you don't like how he is handling your care, you have the right to request a different doctor. Will man do blacklisted? Maybe. That's a whole nother topic and a whole nother discussion of the blacklist within the healthcare community. So
I got that on my list as well. I guess before I get to the blacklist, you did mention it seemed like a part of your son's the downfall in his health care. You mentioned he had a fall out of bed. I just was hoping you could go into more detail, because I think that might be another example of policy and procedure being violated where people don't get proper care.
Correct. So when your health care, when your health is as such as they have to assess you, and when you assess that you're not, you can't mobilize yourself or you're on certain medications and stuff, they put your bed alarms on. And they did not have my son bed alarms on. They had the railings down. And I got a call that morning that, hey, your son fell out of the bed. He's okay. I think he got excited because we told him that you were on your way here as soon as, visiting hours open. And I'm like, thinking to myself, I'm like, that sounds a little weird, but I then asked, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to, I'm going to be up there within 30 minutes. I'll, see him soon. And I got up there. He was fine, appeared to be fine. He was a little, he said he fell out the bed. They said I fell out the bed. And I'm like, you don't remember falling out the bed? He like, no. But I do know that his feeding tube was pulled during that time, which was a main concern as to why he was in the hospital for that long. They couldn't figure out how to get the feeding tube to work again. They couldn't get the feeding tube to go in to, you can get a J tube, you can get a GJ tube, and they couldn't transfer the tube system over just because of how bad it was sitting in his abdominal wall. So that was a big concern, and that's when I asked to have him seen by another hospital to see if he can go over to the Mayo Clinic, just because I looked up and the Mayo Clinic had a lot of good reviews on GI systems, and maybe he could get a whole different procedure so that he wouldn't even need the feeding tube. But I was faced with one of the physicians, like, so you think we're not doing our job here? And I'm like, that's not what I said. I'm 2 or 3 weeks out and his feeding tube is not fixed, and no one is giving me a care plan on what the feeding tube plan is, for it to be fixed. I even had a nurse that advocated on my son's behalf and said, hey, this mom needs a care plan meeting. And a care plan meeting is when all of the specialties that are involved in your case sit down with you and your family, and they say, hey, here, from a GI standpoint, this is what's going on, and this is what our plan is to fix it. Hey, from an endocrine standpoint, this is what's going on, and this is where we're going to be fixing. Hey, from whatever other urology standpoint, this is what's going on, and this is what we're doing to fix it. Within the 77 days of my son being hospitalized, I had no care plan meeting. I had one meeting with a doctor about the tube, fixing the tube, and that was it. I had no other family care plan meeting at all.
This month is National Medical Malpractice Awareness Month. Get to that later in detail, but context of white supremacy, our guest, Miss Dannia Roxanne, also known as Taquanda, discussing the unfortunate, tragic death of her son, Thomas Free. It seemed like, man, shoddy work at minimum at Frederick Hospital in Milwaukee. No care. That's the sort of thing that I'm accustomed to hearing. Like, if she had said that this was MPS and, hey, we don't have no plan for your child. We don't really care about black dudes at school too much, and maybe he graduates, maybe that's what I would expect. Not at the hospital. Like, dang. With what we've heard and the shot, maybe even negligent efforts, and then them getting defensive about it. She said the I assume white physician comes and said, you think we're not doing our job? We just want you to get the best care for Thomas. If you think this facility, Mayo Clinic, you think they can do something, get the best care for your child. Why isn't that the attitude? What? You saying we're not? Come on. In fact, now we get, so you brought up, you make a request. Hey, I don't really want the folks who are in residency, I don't want them in charge of my child's care or my loved one's care. I want experienced doctors to be in charge, saying that, or I want my child transferred. I think they might have a better program over here. I'd like my child's care transferred to this facility. What? You uppity? Put them on the blacklist. What is the blacklist in a healthcare context, Miss Roxanne?
So there's different channels of being blacklisted in the healthcare field. One, as I mentioned earlier, the people that, complain about pain and they want pain meds, they do note that you're, what they call a drug seeker. And so, and this is the thing, and that's why I advise everybody to know what's in your EMR chart. Know what the doctors are writing and saying in your medical chart, because notes play a big part in whether you are seen in a different clinic, whether another doctor will prescribe you certain medications, or whether you just won't be allowed to go into another practice because of your behavior. But they put flags in your chart, they write things in your chart, and it's a medical thing called blacklisting. And it is real. It is real. Because my son, he was a small stature of a young man. You would probably, if you've seen him, you would think he would probably be like 13 or 14. He looked very young. He had a baby face. And when he went to the hospital, they would never listen to him as far as his health, even when it came to dosing him for insulin. He would say, hey, I know my body. That's too much insulin for me. And they would know what the chart says. The scale says that we need to give you this much insulin, to the point where they would give him the insulin and give him the insulin, and next thing you know, sending him into his body into shock, because they're chasing low blood sugars now, because they have to give him dextrose because his blood sugars are they gave him too much insulin. But they never would listen to him. And when he, would be like, I told y'all, not listening to me, or he, be grumpy with him, now they got him listed as he's, mean, or he's combative, or things like that. I actually was even red flagged in his chart, because they let my son blood sugars be ignored, a low blood sugar be ignored for about 45 minutes. As I'm traveling back to the hospital, I drive all the way to Cudahy to pick up my other son, and I'm driving back to go to him, and I'm calling because my son's blood sugar numbers come to my phone, and I'm like, hey, his blood sugars are like in the 50s. Hey, they're in the 40s. And I'm calling, and like, yeah, we're going to get somebody in there to check your blood sugar, to check his blood sugar. And still no one ever went in there to check his blood sugar. And I called back, still no one ever went in there to check his blood sugar. I was even on the phone with my son, because I wouldn't let him off the phone. So I'm on the phone with him on one phone. I'm using one kid's phone to call the number, the desk. And then I'm using one of the kids' phone to record. So I have all this like video recorded of me calling them and me talking to my son on the phone. And this is 45 minutes worth of them not, checking his blood sugar. Him even, we're on the phone, and a doctor comes in and asks him about the wound that he was in there for. And I even interrupted him and said, hey, I know that these are important questions, but right now my son is having a low blood sugar, and I need his blood sugar checked now. Do you think he stopped his questions? He did not stop his questions. He did not say, hey, let me get somebody in here to check their blood sugar. None of that. None of that. And until my son finally said, hey, I got a sandwich in my bag, and he reached over and started eating the sandwich, and a nurse walked past and said, are you supposed to be eating that? And he like, well, my blood sugar is low. I got to do something. I feel like I'm about to pass out. And they went and got security. Security came in, and I'm like talking through the phone like, hey, his blood sugar is low. It needs to be checked. But that time I had gotten in touch with somebody else at the front desk, and I'm like, you know, tell them, like, I demand somebody to go in here right now. Like, my son's blood sugar it says low on my phone, and it can go, and, you know, under low it's like under 15. So I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I know it's under 15. So the hook, I believe, she wasn't even a nurse or anything. She went in there to check the blood sugar, and I think it was at like 13. They wanted to hang the phone up because I was on live with him. And I'm like, I'm not getting off this phone. Do not touch my son's phone and hang it up because I need to make sure his blood sugars go up. Because the guy thought he was just going to hang my son's phone up. And he said, well, he can't be on the phone while he's getting care. And I'm like, he's not getting care. Like, nobody has, this is the first time somebody ever came in here. And no, I'm not getting off the phone until I know my son's blood sugar is up. And however, I went and got him and took him on home. But I looked at his chart the next day, and it said patient refused to get blood sugar checked. And when I went back to screenshot it, the note was taken out of his chart. But so I know it's in there because anytime you put a note into your EMR chart, it's there. It's there. No matter if you the doctor tried to take it out or not, it's there. I even made a complaint with the state, and they didn't thoroughly investigate it. They just dismissed it, and that's a problem. A part of the problem with the system now on how it works. It don't work. So I'm trying to revamp that also.
So eternally grateful I did not have a medical emergency while I was in Wisconsin. Man, there were so many points that stood out as she was sharing. The deception here is massive on so many levels, but even she says, so her son is there, she's on the phone, you know, and importantly, she says, hey, his blood sugar numbers come to my phone. That might be one, hey, everybody, get that sort of app or what have you on your phone or tablet device so that you can have the same sort of safeguards. And if you have someone who's medical emergency, if they're at home, especially if they got to go to a hospital, oh yeah, that way you can be informed. And if you need to make a phone call or get on the phone, whatever, you'll have that data and can get to it. But she says, so blood sugar is low. Let's go and deal with that right now. That is a serious medical emergency. They're not listening. Shut up. She said her son Thomas, hey, I know my body. That's too much insulin. Shut up. Not listening. I thought that was supposed to be somewhere in the dignity plan. So they get further along. He says, oh man, my blood sugar is low. This is not good. Like, oh man, I'm not getting the help I need. I got a sandwich in my bag. So he goes to get his sandwich. He said, hey, you're not supposed to be eating that, Thomas. Hey, my blood sugar is dropping. This is real dangerous. I got to do something. Get security. A black dude with a sandwich. That is a security issue. A black dude with a sandwich. And potentially low blood sugar. Get security. I don't even, I got a sandwich. With what? Man, they would have to tell me a whole lot. Why is
and
this?
So good.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, Gus, and the crazy part to this is, that was one day episode when I took him home and decided, I was going to consult with his doctor to try to change his hospital to, maybe Aurora or somewhere else like that. And so we discussed and we talked about it, and we well, all his records are there at Freighter, and it's probably best that he goes back there, just because his labs came back a little wacky. So I decided to take him back to Freighter that next day. And Lord and behold, mind you, we have different nurses, different staffing, different people this day. Different nurses, different doctors, different staff. The exact same thing happened in the emergency room that day. And if that wasn't even an indicator that lets me know that the practice that they're doing when it comes to diabetic patients is not working, or they're not following protocol in that department when they, or in the hospital in general. So they finally transferred him up to a floor. And guess what? The exact same thing happened. So when I say type 1 diabetics, my experience at Freighter is they do not have the training to take care of type 1 diabetics. And this wasn't just this instance. Every time he was in Freighter hospital, I don't care what it was for. Didn't even have to have anything to do with his diabetes. But guess what? It would turn into a diabetic issue because they don't know how to take care of type 1 diabetes.
Wow, that is stunning. Why? And when she shared that, Miss Roxanne, what I was thinking, now Freighter, they serve a lot of black people. You have a lot of black people who, because of the system of racism, it's not like there's something inherently flawed with black people, because of the system of race. In fact, we just talked about it yesterday. Pick and saves. Kroger said we got to close up these pick and saves. Now we got even more food deserts. That is exactly a big part of how you end up with black people with diabetes, not able to get healthy, quality foods and bad food choices. There you go. And all the stress of racism. But we don't know how to treat type 1 diabetes, and you already know you're going to have a high population coming in here with type 1 diabetes. That's at worst. I mean, if this is not flat out deliberate, willful, Shut up, Thomas. You don't know your Shut up. You don't need to put that sandwich.
Because so Children's is right next door to Freighter, and most of their endocrine and GI patients, they bridge over into Freighter system. So, my guess, and I was just trying to, wonder why they don't have the doctors, or I'm not going to even say the doctors, why they don't have the nurses with that type 1, diabetes experience, shadow over into children. I think you should have to shadow into children and, come over into Freighter, because they don't have that experience. And it's I can only speak on the type 1 diabetic issues, just because that's a juvenile disease. I don't know about any of the other diseases that you can get with, that bridges over. I don't know if they have a hard time with the cares over at Freighter, but I do know type 1 diabetics.
Context of white supremacy. Given what you shared, and I even want to make sure I don't miss out. Hey, if you can be in person, we'll talk about that as well. But if you can't be in person, definitely get that Zoom and be talking. If you have someone who is in greater confinement, you see they said, hey, get off that phone. You can't be on the phone. Give me that sandwich too. Dang, y'all, are we in prison? They're gonna take everything from me. With regards to Freighter, because we talked about, matter of fact, we started the program hearing from Dr. Harper, where she said if you have more faces that look like you, that will help mitigate some of these issues. So they certainly have, they might not have too many black doctors at Freighter, but they certainly have black nurses and other employees at Freighter. So did these black nurses, black faces, did they offer respite, like a brief oasis from the medical racism of Freighter?
Well, so what I want to start and say is the head doctor, or the person that ran the ICU, the SICU, is African American. So I have some issues with that. I do want to say I'm not bashing all nurses and all doctors, because there are some really good doctors and really good nurses. My son received some great care from some nurses that was not African American, and I want to say in his duration of his hospital stay for nurses, I want to say he might have only had one, I can only remember one black nurse. I'll give it two, just to give an extra one in there. But he had a black tech, and she was good. But as far as the black faces, they were maybe housekeeping, and no doctors. No, I want to take that back. He had a doctor that was on the nephrology team. Other than that, and the doctors switch. So when you're in the ICU, your doctors switch every week, which is another big issue, because when you're dealing with somebody that's in the hospital and then you get new doctors the next week, you're starting, routines over. You're going back to the drawing board. So you're not really, advancing. It seemed like my son was at a standstill for a while, when he could have been out of that hospital. He should have been out of that hospital, out of that ICU, definitely. But then, he got the stent put in that hours later. He should have been out of the ICU within 3 to 4 days, not even 3 to 4 days. He should have been out of the ICU. He was talking after day 2. So, yeah.
Wow. When you first got to Freighter, you said that some of the folks who worked there, it seemed like they were, even particularly given what you just said, that, hey, I think Thomas, he should have been out of there within maybe a week, we'll say. He should have been out of there, do everything that you all got to do, and let's go. Should not have taken this long. Given that, you said that as opposed to that sort of thinking, just give us a few days and we'll get Thomas right back to you, Miss Roxanne, it was, oh man, we don't think he's going to make it. You need to prepare for the worst. Was that the sort of tone that you got, and how did you process that?
So after he fell out of the bed, the tube was lodged in his stomach. That still wasn't the main issue. I started seeing a difference in his vitals. His respirations were high 30s, sometimes 40s. So I'm like, he's not able to breathe. Like, why is he, he's saying he's having abdominal pain. It took my son to voice his concerns, to another nurse, and say, hey, I am in pain. My stomach is in pain. I'm about to take this catheter out, and I am not about to keep being in pain. Y'all need to find out why my stomach is hurting like this. And so that nurse said, hey, let me go talk to the doctors on shift and see what we can do. He finally got them to do a scan of his belly, and then they found out that they did not do the procedure correct. So they wasted a whole procedure and took him into a worse condition than what he was than when he came in there, leaving my son's stomach to heal openly, and them pumping him with my son weighed about, I want to say, a good 98 pounds when he went into the hospital. Normally it's say 100 or 101 with his clothes on. But as my son was laying in that bed and they was giving him fluid, I can probably say my son got up to about 150, 60 pounds of fluid. That's dangerous. And that's a lot of why my son, his, liver and kidneys started to, have injury to it because they over-fluidized them. And things just were going down. They were going down the hill. And that's when they did say, hey, he could possibly code. And they gave me and my family 10 passes to visit with him. And I was looking at my son. Thing you got to know about my son, he is very strong. He is very strong, and he will fight. And my son did. He fought to the end. Everything that they tried to do to take my son out, he fought through it. And that's why they had to take him out the way they did, because my son, he was going to fight through it regardless.
She said her son, Thomas Free, not even 100 pounds, dripping wet, baby face, she told us before. She said they filled him with so many fluids, his weight ballooned to 160 pounds. Man, that is... You as someone like, I'm ignorant, I'm, whatever, but I mean, you are a healthcare worker. So you're watching all this and you are way more informed. You're asking questions and documenting what is going on, talking to your son and the video and all that. This is why I said before, being present. Even Miss Roxanne, she has medical background. Even if you don't have all that, just your presence is so valuable. You are there, you're documenting. You already told us you're getting his blood sugar reports just sent immediately to your phone so you can be more informed, ask more questions about what's going on. You said you got the distinct impression that a part of your son going downhill, not making it alive out of this hospital, you felt they were deliberately trying to get you out of that hospital. Is that true, Miss Roxanne?
Oh, yes. Just from the lack of care that they was giving him and the negligent of care that they was giving him, it started from when he first got there with the stent placement. They, even with like just repositioning him, a regular, task of repositioning turned deadly for my son because they was excavating his ventilator. And they did that maybe like 2 to 3 times. Like he had at least 3 or 4 ventilator incidents on their behalf, but 2 where it's like they're getting caught under the bed rail and they're not paying attention to turning him, and then and it just get yanked out of his throat, which should never happen. Which should never happen.
Were they specifically trying to say anything that, we just need to have him private for a little while, or were they trying to encourage you to just get some rest, or how specifically do you think they were just trying to get you out of there?
Well, so there were several incidents, and they do this a lot with many families. They try to discourage the families from being there, or they give you a hard time with visitation, or they give you a hard time while you're in there visiting with your loved one, to the point where you, if you ask questions, they will say they'll ban you and things like that. I've heard a lot of, stories while just sitting in the waiting area, but I experienced firsthand as we were visiting with my son, a Hook unit clerk. She was very nasty with my family. No compassion, which is what one of their mission statements is, compassion. No compassion at all. I reported her. And then in retaliation, she had my family banned. I was able to visit, but I had to get it cleared up within the next couple of days. But by that time, my family that were already, so used to coming up there to visit, they were embarrassed coming to the front to check in, and security rushing them like as if we were criminals or things like that. It was horrified watching your mother and your siblings and my son's siblings get turned away at a very crucial time to visit my son. Once my son overcame that hump where they thought he wasn't going to make it, and he opened his eyes and he started doing well. My son was doing good. He was up doing therapy. Even when he passed, he was communicating the way we, taught our new norm, which is texting and writing and just lip talking. He was communicating with his siblings as they visited. He was up, moving around well. And I can recall vividly them asking me to, you're here so much, you should take a break. And it always stuck in my mind. That's the reason why it always stuck in my mind, is because now I just think like they were really trying to take my son out without me being present. And they didn't want me to be there. I don't understand why. Because they know I was there every day, all day long, every day and all day. And I generally can tell when people, and I know that they probably did see that I probably, needed a break or whatever, but you don't never tell somebody that that's going to be there all day, every day, to take a break. I was never taking a break from my son being in that hospital. I was used to my son. I was used to me being able to be there in that room. And normally on different floors in that same hospital, they would roll a cot and let me sleep in that same room. Because I was a crucial part of my son cheer team. I'm going to advocate for him. I'm part of the team. And everybody that's advocating for a loved one, they need to know you are a part of the team. If you have POA paperwork, you are a part of the team.
Context of white supremacy. I remember, it's a number of books I've thought of, but again, The Crown Jewel, Medical Apartheid by Harriet A. Washington. But I was reminded of Dr. Vanessa Grubbs' Hundreds of Interlaced Fingers, the lovely Dr. Vanessa Grubbs, her book about racism in the field of nephrology. When even she said her husband, she wrote the book because they were just boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, but she saw how her black male privilege, she saw how her black male boyfriend at the time was mistreated in trying to get his kidney replaced. She ended up loaning him a kidney loan, and they got married, and she wrote a book about all the racism in the experience, and she became a nephrologist on time. She was a doctor and then specialized in the kidney field because of all the racism that she saw and how black patients are treated when they're having kidney problems. But Hundreds of Interlaced Fingers, great book. She came here to Seattle to discuss. But then Blind Eye, old Mike Swank, talk about July being National Medical Malpractice Awareness Month. He should be the poster child. Old Mike Swango did the exact same thing. I'm going to put on my white lab coat and pretend to be a doctor. I'm going to get out here, and first thing I do, hey, I don't need no eyeball. Hey, I'm going to take care of your loved one, and they're going to be great. Just give me 5 minutes. We need you to step out. Matter of fact, go down to the cafeteria. Get yourself a coffee. It'll be great. You take a few minutes, refresh yourself. It'll be great. Go on down. All right. And he get that 5 minutes, get his needle. Bang. They come back with a cup of coffee. Oh, yeah, they didn't make it. Like, what? Yeah, they took a turn. And so that was his total M.O. Get them isolated. Nobody around. Pew. And that was we said that. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
And that's exactly what happened with my son. I was there all day, and he had visitors that day. His grandmother came and prayed for him. She had a few of her church friends. She would come every month or so, or a couple, she tried to do it like more than, weeks at a time. She'd come in and check on them and pray over them. But when they left, I walked them out. Mind you, I repositioned my son in the bed himself, and I went to go get me something to eat around the corner from Freighter. And as soon as I left, which is only like 5 minutes away, I went in there, got the food, came out. As soon as I hit Freighter elevator, I get a call from them saying that he's coded. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand what was going on, what happened so fast. And I remember when I got up there, I asked what happened. Everybody's staring at me, looking at everybody, from all the nurses, everybody just staring at me. I knew something terrible had went wrong, but I couldn't pinpoint what happened. As they were taking him to get a CAT scan, I called my family to tell them that, come to the hospital. I'll meet them downstairs, and I remember them calling and telling me to come back upstairs and that he was not going to make it. And I still could not figure out what happened. In that meantime, I looked in his chart. I was able to see that the CAT scan showed that he didn't have a blood clot or anything. There was no clots. So I was still puzzled as to what happened. And I just felt right then and there the most important thing was to be with my son as he was transitioning. But I knew that as soon as he transitioned, I was going to go back into that chart to comb through to see if I can find out what happened to my son. And when I realized after revisiting with my son after he transitioned, I went back to his chart and I was locked out. I couldn't get back in his chart. They had locked me out that fast. I knew then and there that it was something that it wasn't for me to be able to see. So I got up that morning, and mind you, I had been getting my son's medical records by the week up until that happened, because I needed to make sure I had everything I needed, just in case. So I got up that morning and I got the medical records. And in those records, instantly it showed that he got a medication, and the note said uncertain why a patient was on that medication to discontinue it. But he had ended up passing away like a few hours after that medication, after that note was put in there. I could not figure out who prescribed that medication. And I still don't know who prescribed that medication.
Just like we were talking about with the fall out of the bed before, and are they following policy and procedure? Are you, getting appropriate numbers of staff to move a patient so we don't have, whoops, he fell, or whoop, we knocked the tube out? Are we following policy and procedure? Same with the medication. Is that standard operating procedure that we have a form, it's on Freighted stationery, no one has signed off? Just, we got medication without a set. Who authorized this? Who signed this? Is that standard operating procedure? If it's not, hey, shouldn't we be investigating, asking some questions, figuring out something, coming up with some answers? Maybe even to the family, like, hey, we got some irregularities. And even with the records, are we to understand that it was the exact same day that your son Thomas Free passed, the exact same day you were locked out of his medical records?
So when I did ask those questions, first, let's say, like, procedure-wise, that bed incident was not standard procedure. That the bed alarm and the bed rails were supposed to be up. He should not have been able to get out the bed at all. The medication era, definitely, they know who. So when you're in the hospital, a pharmacist has to sign off on a medication, and the doctors have to sign off. So on the 11th, when he got that medication, the pharmacist, the doctor, those days from the 11th, 12th, and then the 13th, and the nurses, they are all responsible for that medication. Because even as a nurse, if you know that your patient is given a medication that is questionable, you have the right to ask the doctor why this medication is given. You have the right to refuse to give that medication, and the doctor will have to give that medication. You, when you give that medication, now your license is at stake for giving that medication too. So there are a number of people that I want to be held accountable for administering or allowing that medication to be given to my son that caused him to go into cardiac arrest and die.
Has Frater, in the time since your son transitioned, have they been transparent at all with you in the questions that you've asked and trying to at least give you some of the answers? Like, what in the world happened? We step away for 30 seconds to get a cup of coffee, and have they provided any answers, been transparent at all?
So after the runarounds, at first I'm pretty sure that they had spoke with their lawyer because they know that it was a lot that they had messed up on. I did get a letter from them trying to explain the medication that was given. In that letter, there were just a bunch of excuses, and there were it was not a direct answer as to why he was given that medication or who gave him or who authorized the medication. Even that letter is not signed by any physician or any department. So I have a letter on Frater letterhead with no one to address.
Anybody who works in medical care, you tell me how often you go look through your file, and really look through your files for any era. So 2020, pre-COVID, post-COVID, anytime. Even go look 20th century. See what you can find. Go look at the 1990s. Do you find medical records where a patient, we're going to give them whatever, insulin, whatever it is, no signature? Is that common?
And so I do believe, like, in his medical records, they do have where they know what pharmacists authorized that, have the doctor that gave, the nurse that gave it, and the time, because, you know, everything gets scanned, and if it's not scanned, if this information is not a part of his EMR, that's another issue that I'm going to have. But it's in there. They didn't disclose those notes to me, where it's clear as to who gave him this and what. We didn't even touch base on the nurse that abused my son. But I don't even know her name. She don't have any notes in the chart. So it's a lot that I need addressed. I had to open up another investigation with them so that this matter can be addressed. But I need them to know that I am not going to let up off of this issue. This was my son, and if they have children, what would they have, done if this was their son? I don't even know how they can go to sleep at night knowing that they not only made big mistakes, but they did my son the way they did him.
Disgraceful. Before, I guess I do see someone with a question. How can we help? Can you tell us about Taquanda's petition? Again, our guest, Miss Dannia Roxanne, also known as Taquanda. Tell us about Taquanda's petition.
So I do have a petition that is on my Facebook page, Dannia Roxanne. I will also link it on his website, which his website is www.just4Thomasfree.info. But on my page is the petition. And in this petition, I'm asking that people stand with me and my family to make adjustments and reform the health care as far as who's able to sue on behalf of an adult child, policies that need to be changed within the healthcare, and just the healthcare reform itself. I did draft a Thomas Free Act, which I am asking that we are allowed as parents to advocate on our sons or daughters' behalf. Because as of right now in Wisconsin, if you have a child that is 18 and over, say for instance your child is in college and they have a medical emergency and have to go to the hospital, and the hospital mess up and do something wrong, you as a parent will not have the right to bring a lawsuit. Only a spouse and a child has that right. But here's the thing. You can sue as a legal representative over their estate, but then there's caps, and you can't collect on emotional damages or anything like that. So lawyers will not take your case because it's not a financial gain for them. Those cases are pricey to litigate, so it's a high chance that you will not be able to sue on their behalf, which is why it is important that we stick together and change the laws that surround that. Also, in this petition, I want to be able to protect the whistleblowers, because if you work in the healthcare field and you feel like you can't voice your opinion and you can't tell when you see something wrong, then we're not going to ever solve the problem. And also the entities that are governed to investigate these allegations, they need to do a thorough investigation. They need to thoroughly investigate instead of walking through and saying, oh, they're washing their hands, they're being nice to the patients, let's just sweep this under. Of course they're not doing what they did to my son, because they already did it to my son. So they know state is coming in, and they're going to be on their best behavior. But that does not change the fact that you guys did not look at these pictures. You guys didn't look at the videos that I have. You guys did not come back and talk to me about the findings before you try to close it out. You guys didn't even probably thoroughly look through the records, because his fall is actually in there. The ventilator excavations are in there. A lot of the evidence is already in his chart. So I don't understand how thoroughly you didn't investigate and find anything to fault them or citate them for. It's really mind-boggling. So.
System of white supremacy racism, somehow, some way. Never negligence or culpability for black people being killed. Never, never, never. The address again, I just shared it on social media. Just for Thomas Free.info. Just, J-U-S-T, the number 4. Thomas Free.info. Last time, just for the number Thomas Free.info. Medical negligence, indeed. Sometimes it's just medical racism. Our caller, Octavius in New York, if you had a question for our guest, Black Mommy in Wisconsin, Miss Dannia Roxanne. Octavius in New York should be with us.
Greetings, Gus. Greetings, callers and listeners. And thank you, Ms. Roxanne, for being on the line with us, first off, and sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
I do have some questions in regards to the field that you're in as far as medical knowledge that you have. One of the things I was asking was, what do you think of some of the basic questions should be for non-white people when going in to see a doctor, like just the standard things that we should ask, and what things, maybe one or two, would trigger an alarm and say like, hey, you should pull back and find another physician, find another doctor, and just for a checkup, and then for another space as far as if you were going into a surgery, what should you ask and be concerned about? I was just wondering if you had some input on that based on your experience.
So if you are going in for like a routine checkup and you already have pre-existing medical conditions, if you, here's a thumb, so if you are conversing with your physician and you have questions and they are, like swiping them away and not answering your questions, then I think that, you would want to question like, why aren't you, giving me any type of, answers as to why I'm feeling this way, or giving me a suggestion on what I can do, or trying to find a different, a different expert as to what I'm going through. Most doctors, a good doctor would, if you come in and you have questions about your health concern, they will explain it thoroughly to you. They won't, because here's the thing. When you go into these doctor's appointment now, they're like a 15-minute appointment. And back in the days, it used to be like 30 minutes or whatever. But because the healthcare is a money chain, they cutting the times down. And they want you to come in and they want you to only have one or two concerns. And when you go in there with those concerns, they want to be as thorough as you can. And most doctors, a good doctor, they're going to go over that 15-minute mark in their appointment. And sometimes they won't, because I've worked with a derm doctor that could do a whole skin exam and a biopsy and talk to his patients about their whole life, because they've been his patients for many years. But one thing I noticed about him is he's always looked into their chart prior to. So he knows his patients. If your doctor knows you, then you can have a quicker appointment and they can address certain things. But most of the time, you have to let them know that you want the answers. And if they can't give it to you, then you may have to find a different doctor that is going to, and questions that you want to ask. If you don't have health issues, I don't think you really, would be asking a lot of questions if you didn't have any health issues. But say, for instance, if you had a medication that wasn't working for you, you can ask them, like, is there any other medications within my, my insurance range that I can possibly take? Because a lot of people don't understand that, yeah, they have high blood pressure. Most doctors, they utilize certain high blood pressure medicines, but they're probably, if you Google, you're going to get probably close to 300, 400 different type of high blood pressure medicines. So there's different alternative medicines, but you just have to let your doctor know that, that's not working for you, and see if they can.
Pardon the interjection. I just wanted to say I did have a situation like that where I had a surgery recently, and a doctor tried to prescribe me, I believe it's oxycodone. I think that's the drug that a lot of people are getting hooked on, if I'm correct, like a pain relief one.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I haven't taken it, but I was just thrown back a little bit because I never asked for it. And I think that's something that should be, you know, due to the history of it, it should be asked before you recommend something like this. I mean, till this day, right now, it's sitting in the cabinet, and I don't know if it's even good anymore, but I definitely agree with you on that as far as medication as well.
Well, I think sometimes, too, it depends on what surgery you did have. They have a standard that they have to, you can decline medication. If you decline it, they just have to put in your chart that you decline that medication. But depending on the surgery, I wouldn't say have to, but they, if they feel like certain surgeries require a higher tolerance for pain, he may have thought that you know, at that moment you might not have needed it, but once you get home, it's better to have it than to not have it. But you can always take that medication back to them so that they can discard it and let them know, or, you know, yeah.
Understood. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And one last thing I wanted to ask you, in regards to you speaking on your son being diabetic, was the food even in the hospital good enough for your son at that time? And I'll mute my line.
So, my son, it's crazy because he ordered the same for years and years and years. He ordered the exact same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The exact same thing, and that was the turkey slices with the mashed potatoes with chicken gravy over it. Two scoops of mashed potatoes, 2 servings of the turkey slices with the chicken gravy over it. And then he'll order some broccoli, steamed broccoli. And that was for breakfast, lunch, and he hated the food here. But that was safe for him. And that's all he ordered. And this is anytime he ever went to the hospital. That's all he ordered.
Got it. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
Much obliged, Octavius in New York. If anybody else has a quick question for Miss Roxanne before we let her enjoy the rest of her Sunday evening, *61. I know you told us, Miss Roxanne, or you told me that you are prepping to go travel west from Milwaukee to the state capital, Madison, going up there to talk to the folks at the state capitol about some of the very reforms that you've been speaking about with us today. I do keep up now with Wisconsin news. Generally, it's nothing good. I will keep an eye out. What are you going up there to talk to the folks about?
Well, just to talk to them about, the medical malpractice issues that are going on at Freighter, and to introduce my son's his act, the Thomas Free Act, to try to get it on the books and read by them. Hopefully to get this law changed so that we can be able to sue on behalf of our children. And there's certain things, and it's on the petition, and I'm just going to read them off because I'm on here. I want to mandate independent investigations. That was one thing that we didn't talk about. I feel like when your loved one is in the hospital and they pass away from a medical neglect or malpractice, that hospital should not be in charge of operating that autopsy. I didn't get that option to send my son to a different facility to be examined. They even told me that my son couldn't even get a toxicology. And I feel like that did a disservice to me really knowing the truth about everything that happened to my son. Also on the agenda on that petition is having access to the full medical records. Like, I should know, what time a medication was given. And I understand that you can get that, but every time I went and asked for all of that, it was never given to me. I want to know what time medication was given, who gave it, and the purpose of giving it. And then I want to establish state-level patient justice unit, which it creates a department under the Wisconsin Department of Health that focuses on hospital abuse, wrongful death, and misconduct. And this is like a liaison, a bridge between filing the state complaints and, a person like myself. It's just like making sure that it gets done and it's done properly and gets to the right departments, because a lot of our people are not filing the complaints properly. They are not even filing the complaints because they don't feel like they are going to be heard or nothing is going to happen. Also, I'm going to protect the whistleblowers and families to prevent retaliation against the healthcare workers and families who speak out. Also, impose penalties for obstruction. So, like when I said the doctor erased those medical records where my son's blood sugar level was low and they wouldn't go in, and he wrote that my son refused care. That's a criminal. That's tampering with evidence. That's falsifying documents. You should be penalized. Also, to grant the legal standings to parents and siblings. And I added the siblings in because we, with crime rates, we know that some households, they are without parents, but they have siblings that will stand up and advocate on their behalf. So I think that if we cover these points, that we can start getting somewhere with reforming the health care. And I think it's going to take working together, not, working against me and me working against them. Although I am not a big fan of freighters, I know that a lot of people will still have to continue to use them. So why not make it a place where it's safer for our people to utilize, and we don't have to deal with the unjust.
You can see the petition, sign the petition, and keep up with what's happening in Madison later in July. Visit the website just for the number thomasfree.info, just for thomasfree.info. We will be keeping our eyes. Lots of reasons to watch what's going on in Madison later this month. Ms. Scarborough is supposed to be going there to talk about the task force for missing black girls later this month as well. I wanted to make sure I asked about the abuse of your son that you mentioned, because you said we omitted that, and there were so many episodes of abuse. But I want to get that as well. But I did want to ask, remind, listeners, Miss Roxanne is in the archives, day 9 of our court coverage. We got to talk to lots of folks right outside the courtroom after the verdict. Miss Roxanne was right there, spoke with us, and talked about being what did she say? Man, it is tough to heal in Milwaukee with all this violence happening around you. and we talked about that verdict and her being a black mom. She does have those 4 sons, but she also has daughters. So the Sade Robinson case certainly had an impact on her as a mom. I guess quickly, you were out protesting. Were you actually on the search team as well?
I was not. My ankle was broke, so I was not. I held up just enough time to be able to support Ms. Robinson with a display set up. I love Ms. Robinson so much. She's such a strong woman.
Facts. Best thing in Milwaukee. Did you know her before the tragedy with her daughter, or you all met after that?
I did not.
Wow.
We met after.
Wow. I did hear that from a lot of people, that they met afterwards and best friends for life, that type of thing. I heard that from a lot of people, but wow, that is okay. Again, she's in the archives. We're right outside after court. She was all in pink out there protesting, even after all that we've heard. Now, specifically, she said the abuse there were so many episodes. When you said the nurse that abused your son, are you talking about the toothbrush incident specifically, or?
Well, yeah, it's like a little spongy toothbrush. My son, he called and said that he was being hurt by a nurse. Now, mind you, he didn't have these issues prior to with any of the other nurses. He did say that they talk to him really bad, or they're mean when I leave. They're nice when I'm there, but as soon as I leave, they're mean, and they like don't let him. They don't change him fast enough. He's sitting and poop and stuff. But this particular nurse was new on shift, and I couldn't catch her at the beginning of her shift. She was in another room with another patient, and I was kind of, thinking like, I don't know why she was in another room, because my son was a one-on-one. But as I'm trying to catch her, because visiting hours closed at 8, and I'm still lingering around past 8 to kind of catch her, and I couldn't catch her, and they were really strict on, making you leave out and things like that. And I always wanted to follow the rules, because I didn't want to be banned and not be able to come see my son. So I would make sure I followed the rules. So I wasn't able to kind of go over my son Kiers and stuff, and how his day went with her, even though your nurse, they round with the staffing beforehand. It's good that you touch bases with them, because you sit in the room with your loved one all day. The nurse is in and out, so they don't really know exactly how your loved one did all day. They're just going to give statistics with the vitals and things like that. So I was always, wanting to meet, and this was actually the first nurse that I wasn't able to do it with, because she was just not available. But as I came back up there after my son called, and he was in distress, and I couldn't understand what he was, what was going on. So I had to have him text it to me. And when he said he was being hurt, I, went to the hospital. They weren't going to let me in at first, because it was after the hours. But I said, hey, if you don't let me in, I'm going to call the police, because my son said, somebody hurt him, and I'm going to call the police. And the charge nurse, she said, okay, you can come up, but you can't spend the night. And I'm like, that ain't what I asked. I said, let me get up here and make sure my son is okay. Once I got up there, the nurse, she was looking worried, and the tech, which was an African-American older lady, she looked scared. and my son was writing in his iPad, because I told him, I said, text what happened in your iPad so that I can address it. And he's writing in the iPad, and the tech is literally over his bed trying to look into the iPad, and he puts it into, close to him. And I said, excuse me. I said, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I said, he's writing something to me. What are you doing? And she said, oh, I was just trying to see what was wrong. And so I'm like, I said, well, then I addressed it to the nurse. I'm like, why doesn't he have on any covers? And she said, oh, you want covers time? You could have covers time. And I'm like, well, why didn't he have covers on already? And she says, and she looks at me with this smirky face. She said, he had a fever. And I said, was there anything other than taking his covers that you could have did to alleviate the fever? Like, did you give any Tylenol or anything? No. I said, well, what is your procedure if they have a fever? What is the procedure for, covering him up? Because if I'm not mistaken, he should have at least one cover. One, you could have gotten a sheet or anything you could have covered him up with. He's supposed to have a cover over him at all times. So she's like, we can get him some cover. So I said, well, can you check his temp now? And she checks it, and it's 98.6. So I'm like, She went down really quick without any aid of any medication or anything. So I kind of figured, like, I don't think he had a fever to begin with. So I asked her, I said, well, what happened during oral care time? Oh, Tom, you want to do oral care? We can do oral care. I'm like, no, what happened during oral care time when you just did oral care with him? Well, it's about to be midnight, so he can get it again, because we got to give him 3 times so he can get it again. I said, well, no, I'm asking you what happened during oral care when you just did it. I said, my son said that you took both of his hands and you crisscrossed them, held them into his chest really hard, and start jamming that toothbrush thingy down into his throat. You hurt him. Oh, Tom, I didn't mean to hurt you. If you think I hurt you, I didn't mean to hurt you. At this point, I was like already like my top of my head was on fire. So I'm like, please go get your charge nurse. So she comes in and I explains everything. And then I'm like, I don't want her working with my son. You're going to have to switch a nurse or do something, but she cannot work here with my son. And so she didn't say anything else. She switched her. And the next day, I, went in and I recorded my son saying it. A lot of people see that video on my Facebook page. And I made sure I saved the text message that he sent and made sure that he typed it out on his iPad in notes so that serves as a document also. The nursing staff there, the manager in that department, they failed to report this nurse abuse. Not until my son passed away is when they mentioned it and sent it over to the state. But I had already filed the report, so I still, it was in like the heat of the moment. I didn't even get that nurse name, but I didn't think too much about it because I'm like, she did give him his night meds, and she should have, she definitely was on the board to work with him, so I should be able to get get her name so that I can do a formal complaint, but I was not, I don't know her name. And I need to know her name too, because she needs to be reprimanded as well. I want her license taken.
Crisscrossed his arms down and then abused him with the brush. Man.
Abuse. And I'm going to say crisscrossed his arms, but she held his arms into his chest really hard.
Wow.
He did oral care by himself every single day, by himself. But all she had to do was go over to him and hand him the oral care thing. It's even in his, because I have it highlighted into his PTOT notes that patient is to do all self-cares, and it encouraged them to do that so that they can keep the mobility, for themselves. That's in the notes. So she didn't follow any protocol, and her thoughts was she was gonna abuse a person that couldn't have control for himself or couldn't speak for himself. She thought she was gonna get away with abusing him. She didn't know if she had rounded with me before I left, she would have known he can communicate very well, but she didn't know that. She just thought that his iPad was there for comfort noise, because when I leave, I put the iPad on sounds like light, ocean sounds and stuff like that, because that's his routine. That's what he always done. So she just thought it was there for decorations, and she didn't know that he knew how to use it.
Wow. Man, be present. That would be number one. If we cannot avoid having to go to the hospital, like, do all that you can to take care of yourself and people that you care about, do the best that you can to manage your health. But if you have to go to the hospital, man, try to have somebody present who is in relatively good health, paying attention, and then phone. That is the time you want that phone or tablet or whatever it is. Have your device so that you can be communicating, recording. You all can even hop on that Zoom and get that camera working. But man, communicate what she told us before, his blood sugar levels and such, any pertinent medical info. Get those apps. You can have that information. You can probably get it in a text message, email, whatever. Like, get that information so that you can be more informed with what sort of questions you need to ask. And, how serious is this? Are you up here lying to me? That seemed like a major theme that we got today as well. It is so easy. Mike Swango, it is so easy. You get that white doctor's coat or the nurse's scrubs and just lie and lie and lie. And
oh yeah,
phew.
They tell you a fraction of what they think you want to hear, or what you don't want to hear. It all depends on what usage they can use it as. Doctors are, a lot of them fear to tell the truth because they, it's not a moral thing, but it's because, they all stick together. They all stick together, and it's as far as if you have a loved one in care and something terrible is going wrong, you're not going to know from them, because if they got to implicate one of their coworkers, it's not going to happen.
the white wall again. We get the blue wall with the police, and when we get to the hospital, we got the white wall. And we did hear that with Mike Swango, Blind Eye, James Stewart, and he killed all them people. And, well, we don't want to mess. We trying to get this dude cancer wing. We don't want to mess up our donation. And that's not funny because people were dying and such, but it was the exact same thing. We don't want no police investigation in here. Like, you messing? I'm not going to snitch. No snitching. And 20 years later, Mike Swango still killing folks in a doctor's coat. Not now, he's in prison finally, but all that could have been nipped in the bud decades earlier. Just follow policy and procedure. Yes, ma'am.
Well, one of the young ladies that worked there, she did reveal to me that, one of the doctors that a lot of doctors and nurses and everybody, they're scared to make complaints on this one specific doctor that's on that floor, on that team, because they don't want to. They're saying that he's the best, and they don't want to lose him as a doctor there. He gets complaints, but nothing ever happens. And I'm just thinking to myself, well, if he's the best and he's getting complaints or he's jacking people up, then they need to really rethink of what's the best. And if that's the best, then, I don't know. Can't be the best.
Is this person that everybody is afraid to snitch on and say, well, we can't, be going and ratting on him because he's the best, quote unquote, and we can't lose him. I bet this is that head African American doctor that you were telling us about before. That's who this is, isn't it?
No, it's not her. It's not her. It's a male. It's a white male doctor.
Dang, I just knew we had some black male privilege. Like, see there, we got that old uppity.
Oh, no.
Man, damn.
She actually, when I brought the concern of him being transferred to the Mayo Clinic, I made sure I did it in a respectful way and thanked them for everything that they were doing. But I think that he needed a new set of eyes and to get him over to another team that will be able to, assist him in a bigger way. But because Frater feel like they are the biggest, and I'm saying that in Donald Trump's words, big league. They think they're the big league. That who else is better than them? That no one else is better than them. So she did say, you have that right, and we will do what we can on our part to get him transferred over. But what she didn't do is put the fire up under her team and make sure that they did their job. It was actually a charge nurse and the social worker there that said, hey, let us look into this and make sure that they are doing their part, because for days I would call over to Mayo Clinic and say, hey, did you guys get the information, a referral from the doctor yet? And they're like, no, we didn't get anything come in. And then I would go back to the Frater team and say, hey, they have not talked. And they said, well, they got to call us. And I said, listen, I wrote down steps. I recorded it. I even had the nurse listen while I talked to them to give them the steps to do, and they still wasn't following it to get my son over to them. And eventually they did do the paperwork and did everything, but the reason why my son was denied by Mayo Clinic, 2 reasons. I think Mayo Clinic got his records and looked at it and said, we're not touching him. They already jacked him up too far, and we're not going behind that. And the simple fact that they had lied to Mayo and said that they had everything under control, and they had a solution to getting his tube fixed, when in reality they didn't have a clue as to what they was going to do with his tube. One doctor had told me that he was going to reroute it and let the bio or everything all go into one bag and then refeed it in. So, and I'm like, that sounds nasty. That's just like you eating your throw up. And I'm like, I don't think that's the best solution to do. But when the doctor that originally put the feeding tube into my son's stomach initially, he came on the team 1 week and he said, hey, I'm familiar with this tube because I put it in. And he explained, until he explained to me what was going on with my son's tube, I didn't even know what was going on with it. He said what has happened is they replaced this tube because they took the tube out. I ended up counting back. It was maybe like 14 times they replaced my son's feeding tube within them weeks, time frame. And he said what happened is they kept taking the tube out, putting it in, putting it in a bigger one, putting it in the bigger one, putting it in the bigger one, putting it in the bigger one. And it was sitting in his abdominal wall. And we have to now take that tubing out. And then we have to put a very tiny, 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 tiny tube in and let his skin and body heal around that small tube. And then we can take that out and put the normal size tube that is supposed to be in there, and it'll be right in place, and he'll be able to feed through that tube fine. And he did that. He did that, and his tube was fixed, and he was feeding through it the day he passed. They got fixed, I think, the 11th, the 12th or the 12th, and it was like some hours they had to wait to use the tubing, and he was feeding through it that day. And I remember him coming in to check on a tube, and I said to myself when he came in, he looked sad, and he was complaining that they, he was complaining about the tube, that it was fine, but he wanted to just pull it back just a little bit. But he looked at my son, and then he left. And he was always, he always talked to us and, was pleasant or whatever. But I knew that they knew my son wasn't going to make it that day because they had already given him that medication that I complained about, because I was like, why is my son so tired this day? Why is he so tired? He, told me, he said, Mama, I've been asleep all day, all night. He said, I'm tired, like it's not even my control to be tired. But when I told them that, they're like, no, it's because he was up all night. And my son looked at me, he shook his head, he said, no, I wasn't, Mama. So they knew that they were killing my son, and they just needed me to step away and go grab something to eat or do whatever so they can finish doing whatever they knew what was going on.
Context of white supremacy. Again, our guest, black mother in Milwaukee, Miss Dannia Roxanne. Wow. Yeah, this, I think, again,
it was just so much, like, it's so much that we didn't even uncover, like that trach situation. And I think you shared it on your page. Like, it's so much. It was so much that we couldn't uncover everything. But they know exactly everything that they did. I'm going to make sure that they know everything that they did. And I'm going to get justice for my son. And I'm going to make sure that other families' voices are being heard, and we stand together, because at the end of the day, we have to still utilize the healthcare system. And nobody wants to go to the healthcare being scared or thinking that they can't, that they're not going to come out alive, or that they're not going to receive the best care, as if we were a family member of the doctors and nurses that come in and come through there, because they get good care. They make sure that the doctors, they request certain doctors to work on their loved ones. They request to be there, and they can stay. They can stay, and they get privileged to stay overnight. They get privileged to, have extra visitors. We want to be treated the same way.
Just for Thomas Free.info, you can see when Miss Roxanne later this month, when she's going up to Madison, make some changes, make some improvements to these laws in the Badger State, as they call it. The address again is Justice for the number 4 Thomas Free.info. Hit the website so you can stay informed what Miss Roxanne is up to in the 414. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your Sunday evening with us to talk about this really tragic situation and losing your son horribly, and I think sounds like medical racism, white supremacy per usual, but to give us some more of the details about just some of the other dangers in Milwaukee County. I guess anything that you'd like to say on the way out, the Patient Lives Matter effort that you are leading, or anything else before we get ready to wrap things up?
No, just support the movement. Patient Lives Matter. This is, a movement that's just starting. If you have any information to share with us, please reach out through the website. If you want to be a part of the movement, there is a form, an inquiry form on there that you can sign up to help with the movement. And there is a donation link in there. And through this donation link, we will utilize it for care baskets for ICU families, and different things to help, busing for to events and, printing things. So anything and everything is welcomed, and we appreciate everyone that has been praying for our family and praying for us and helping us through this tough time in this journey. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and just keep my son's name ringing. When you see Thomas Free, you tell somebody about Thomas Free. He was a very brave, courageous young Black man. He was full of love. He was an artist, and he was my son. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for sharing some of your time, letting us know about your son, Thomas Free. The website again, just for the number 4 thomasfree.info. We will keep our eyes on what is happening with your son's case and how things go in Madison. Now we have 2 reasons to see what happens in Madison later in July, but please continue to take tremendous care of yourself, the rest of your family. Hopefully you all can escape the jungle that is the 414. And yeah, it is super dangerous out there. Stay safe, Miss Roxanne. We will definitely be supporting and keeping your son's name, Thomas Free, alive, so that people know what happened at Frederick.
Thank you so much, and I definitely will keep myself safe. I am, I'm still, being vigilant out here with finding resources also for our community. Because at the end of the day, we got bad stuff that's happening and going on, but we got a lot of positive stuff. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna send you some positive stuff that have been going on in our community. And maybe we can get some of the positive stuff on your show that's been going on, because we do got a lot of positive stuff. And, I'm a firm believer that if you broadcast the positive stuff, people will lean toward and you fight positive and positive. The negative, we're going to fight it with positive so that people can find something else to, to talk about and look forward to, instead of just, that's what get me by day. I do not watch the news at all. I don't watch the news. I pretty much try to find something positive to do with myself and my children. I can't consume the news here. I can't.
I definitely please share any constructive things that black people are up to in Milwaukee County. Let me know. I would definitely check it out and promote all of that. Let me know, because it does look like it is often not the most fun tidbits and details that they share. But yeah, if you find anything constructive, share, and I will announce and let folks know it is not all bad in the 414. They do have problems, but hey, at least some folks are trying to do, and we're talking to one right now. Make sure we make it plain. Talking to one right now, our guest live, Miss Dannia Roxanne. But yes, we will keep your son's name prominent. And yes, let us know. We will look forward to having you back on the program so we can get more updates. And because the iatrogenic deaths, that is a massive problem around the world, and we've had folks say it's getting worse. So this is an issue we should all be paying attention to. So keep up the very important work, and keep up your son's name, Thomas Free, and we will definitely be in touch. Miss Roxanne, thank you again for sharing a bit of your Sunday evening with us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Our guest, Miss Dannia Roxanne, again, that she was with us back in June, last day of the trial when we got the verdict. Taquanda, a.k.a., but she was giving us some of her thoughts, again, as a black mom in Milwaukee, about the case with Sade Robinson, and then her own situation at Frederick with her son, Thomas Free. We should be back on Tuesday. Yes, Tuesday. Now, again, we had the Seattle International Film Festival right literally the day I got ready to leave, or the day I left. The day I left to depart from Milwaukee was the last day of the Seattle International Film Festival. It was so closely timed, I had to go to the last two movies of the film festival with my luggage for Milwaukee. Wacky. Left the theater to go to the airport. Wacky. Anyway, but it was so, just the timing, like to be at, just totally immersed at the festival and leave, and then immediately, now we're at a murder trial in Wisconsin, no less. Totally immersed, almost forgot about the festival, almost came back trying to get my bearings. It's like, oh, well, yeah, the film festival. We're supposed to talk to some of the films, and some of those movies still haven't even come out in, mainstream theaters. 40 Acres. racist cannibals. That would be Jeff Dahmer again. But 40 Acres just came out in major theaters this weekend. As I said, some of the other films that I saw, they have not even been released yet. I guess some of them may never. One of those films we will chat it up about on Tuesday. Black filmmaker, he said this film is an ode to Atlanta. Now, I did have to think about that a little, especially what the film is about, but I did have to think about that as a former Atlanta resident. But, man, looking for that. I greatly enjoyed the film. I'm super looking for it. And this film, Black Parenting. Can't wait. Looking forward to chopping it up with the filmmaker on Tuesday. Same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I will say, for this broadcast, we dropped, I feel like I mentioned so many books related to racism and health, and I will say again, at the top of the list, it can be no lower than number 3 on my book list. Already said Delectable Negro, number 1. But can be no lower than number 3, Medical Apartheid, Harriet A. Washington. We read the book cover to cover in 2016. But also mentioned on today's program, James Stewart, Blind Eye, about Michael Swango, white pretend doctor lying and killing all those patients all over the world. We read that whole book, Catherine Massey Book Club. Dying While Black, Vernelia Randall, Black professor. She was a guest on our program. She's been a guest repeatedly over many, many years, but she was a guest way back when we first started, 2009, and that book has some of the very same suggestions about do not toss a black person that you care about off into Froedtert or any other hospital and, well, I'll go check up on Leroy a few months later. Well, Leroy might not be with us a few months later. Keep an eye out, do some Zooms, go hang out, visit, all of that, so that they know people are checking in on Leroy if you hope that he gets out. And then try to stay out of that hospital to begin with if we can. Book also, Killing the Black Body, Dorothy Roberts. Now, she was mentioned a bunch of times yesterday for her other work, foster care and such, but Killing the Black Body, seminal landmark text. She was with us 2009, again, like we came out, like we knew what we were talking about from day one. She was a guest on the program, Killing the Black Body, and talking about the different ways that white doctors and the healthcare field in general has been weaponized against black people in total. And even within that, when she was talking, Miss Roxanne, about the blacklist, right? They put you on, you ask too many questions or speak up for yourself. It reminded me, we had Dr. Jennifer Tsai, T-S-A-I, as a guest on the program, and she talked about the discharge against doctor's orders list, where that is very similar. Like you're in the hospital and maybe you, like Miss Roxanne, say, hey, something, this care is not, you all aren't listening to me. You held my arms down aggressively, violently, shoved a brush in my mouth. I want to get discharged. They put that in your file. Discharge against doctor's orders. That's very similar. That's another one. They look like, ooh, we don't want Leroy. You're going to get in here and, cause all kinds of problems and be routed. We not. That might even follow you to other hospitals, the same way that she talked about that blacklist type of thing, where they say, ooh, we looked in your permanent record, Leroy. That sort of thing. So, yes, keep an eye on your medical records. And even Dr. Tsai, she told us, she said, Gusty, who's most likely to get a discharge against doctor's orders. Anyway, anything else? Let me double check. Octavius in New York, did you have any commentary that you wanted to get in? It seemed like you had some mild resonance, even though not Wisconsin related, with some of the medical issues. Anything you wanted to share before we get ready to wrap it up? Octavius in New York.
Not much, Gus. I do think that it was a really important program. I do believe that some of the things as far as the questions that you need to ask are extremely important. I think we go in trusting doctors a little bit too much, especially non-white doctors. As far as myself, I did have a surgery recently, and I do recommend ask as many questions as possible. And if you can, speak to another doctor before you even have the surgery. My surgery was successful. Everything is fine. But again, it could have gone a different direction if I didn't ask enough questions prior to the actual surgery that day.
Love to hear it. Glad the things worked out well with your surgery. But and we hear that so frequently. That is going to be your best option. Sometimes your only option is asking questions so that you can be more informed, so that you can make the best decision that you possibly can based on the information at that time. Hopefully accurate information at that time. Often that'll be the best that you can do. Ask questions. And he said he asked plenty of them. Things worked out well. Glad to hear it, but yeah, that's ask question. When it's hospital time, that is for sure question time. Especially
and you know what?
Oh, that's Miss Roxanne. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm still on. And may I add, no question is a bad or stupid question. They need to know that. No question. I don't care how small you think it is, ask it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. No, in the medical, really, some people say any context, but I would say absolutely. Once we get to the doctor's office, no question is a bad question. No question is a stupid question. All questions are valid. Stupid people are welcome at the hospital. They don't have a sign up that says, you got to take a test, and if we think you're stupid, get on. We don't heal stupid people. That's not the case. So even if I am dumb, break it down and explain it to me for stupid people. All questions are valid at the doctor's office. Absolutely. Let's see. And we even talked about that. We talked about that with Dr. Tsai. She's a non-white doctor, by the way, but she was the one who was talking. She wrote a whole report, in fact, on how the discharge against doctors' orders is connected to racism. But she talked about how language is deliberately used, where they will use all that highfalutin language. And then when you say, there's see, you're ignorant, you're stupid, see, you're ignorant and dumb, and they might even put that in your file, that you're ignorant. And that, again, that's not funny, but seriously, they'll put that in your file and say, you're ignorant, stupid, they won't follow orders. This, wait a minute, I was just trying to ask a question so that you can explain it to me. Then I can get a chance to follow some of the orders. Medical apartheid, Harriet A. Washington, massively important. There's been subsequent scholarship to build on that, but wow, Harriet A. Washington, brilliant black female, and she even said at the beginning of the book that white people pressured her not to write that book. I'm so glad she put that right at the very beginning in the preface. They didn't even want me to write this. I can see why. Anywho, we will be here on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Get your copy of Medical Apartheid if you've not read it, or some of the other many books, like we mentioned, lots of them today. Dr. Grubb's Hundreds of Interlaced Fingers. That's a good one as well. She came back with us when COVID happened to double down, because they talked about how if you have kidney problems, that's a double whammy for COVID-19. So she came back and talked to us again when that happened. But that was another one. Lots of great info and written by a black person. Much obliged again to our guest, Miss Roxanne. The website, again, keep up, get information, share with others, just for thomasfree.info. Already shared on my social media and such. Share, let folks know what happened to her son, Thomas Free. I will make sure I say for the record, just because everything was so current, I did make sure to share with Miss Roxanne that Gus T has really poor people skills, kind of considered lame by many, and unfortunately I did upset Miss Scarborough recently. I did share that with her so that she could have the option if she didn't want to be associated with no count lame Gus, and we were able to proceed with the broadcast. But all respect to Miss Scarborough and the extraordinary efforts that she has invested over the last year and a half for her child no longer with us. And justice for Sade, indeed justice for Thomas Free. Sobriety would be best. Say it every broadcast. I think it might even be especially in Wisconsin, because they have a lot of alcohol-related deaths in Wisconsin. Man. That said, Creator, we ask that you remind us to maximize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Remind us not to waste non-white people's time and energy, especially our own. Stop producing throwaway black children. Stop name-calling black people. Stop gossiping. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.